Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're digging into a seriously fascinating case study in system design. We're looking at a solo developer who used an AI assistant, but not just to write a couple of quick scripts. No, he used it as a full-fledged co-architect to build a complex, completely sovereign edge computing system. We're going to follow a developer named John, who calls himself the silent architect, and see how he found a real collaborative partner in AI to navigate some immense system design challenges. Actually, John put it perfectly in his own logs, saying, "The silent architecture gains relevance by making a friend in the dark." And that friend, it was Gemini. It's just a profound look at human-AI collaboration. So, here's our game plan for today. We'll meet the silent architect, move from chaos to blueprint, build out a multi-node pipeline, navigate a massive hardware crisis, and finally, look at the living operating system they created together. Let's jump right in. Section 1. Meet the silent architect, reclaiming the code. So, John wanted to build an autonomous machine that builds, basically an AI-orchestrated system running entirely on his local hardware to automate his workflows. And that number, 30, it represents what John calls his 30-year compile. Imagine getting a computing degree way back in 1997 and just letting it sit dormant for 3 decades. But by partnering up with Gemini in his daily chats, John finally took that academic foundation and turned it into high-velocity execution. He literally reconciled his past potential with his current reality. Okay, moving on to Section 2, from chaos to blueprint, setting the foundation. The evolution of this project is just wild. Back in April 2026, John was basically just dropping messy, chaotic notes and constantly changing to-do lists into a Gemini chat. And Gemini acted as this amazing sounding board, organizing the logic before a single line of code was even written. Because of that chat setup, the project skyrocketed. By May, it evolved into a distributed multi-node hardware pipeline, and by June, a fully autonomous Linux edge network. You know that fleeting dopamine hit you get when you cross something off a to-do list? Well, John and Gemini actively designed against that. Through their back-and-forth chats, they built a totally new philosophy. They completely stopped chasing checklists. Instead, they designed a continuous, living loop of captured ideas. Like John wrote, the file system is built as a permanent execution engine. Which brings us to Section 3, building the multi-node pipeline, the first draft. To actually make this live-in loop work, our co-architects drafted an initial setup spread across 3 totally different physical devices. First, they routed raw tasks from a TCL phone using Telegram. Then, they pushed that data through a Samsung device running a local QAnon 2.5 AI model to enrich the data. Finally, it all fed straight into a Dell laptop that acted as the orchestration hub and database. And managing that complex workflow required a system. Through their constant prompting, they hammered out what they called the SAI pattern. That stands for simulation, assimilation, and implementation. It became their absolute mantra for taking these rough, raw thoughts and turning them into structured code, all without touching corporate cloud infrastructure. But then, total disaster struck. The TCL phone, their main injection node, just suddenly died. And at the exact same time, that Dell server was buckling under the pressure. I mean, imagine trying to run a full AI factory on a laptop with only 4 GB of RAM. The whole Exocore 26 ecosystem was literally on the verge of crashing. That leads us directly into Section 4, the hardware crisis pivot, constraint-driven design. Staring down a total system collapse, John leaned heavily on his AI partner for a massive, rapid refactor. They chatted through the hard constraints, and Gemini suggested a major pivot. The plan? Abandon that fragile 3-node setup for a much tougher 2-node architecture. They migrated the entire active ingestion role over to the Samsung Edge node, purely to protect the Dell server's incredibly limited resources. Gemini basically turned into a strict personal trainer for that Dell laptop. It laid down a ruthless survival guide. It mandated switching from a heavy in-memory database to a disk-based SQLite setup just to save RAM. It enforced strict memory caps, told John to ditch those heavy code editors for lightweight ones like NeoVim, and ordered all local AI models to run completely headless. It's honestly a brilliant masterclass in constraint-driven design. And now, Section 5, the living operating system. Exocore 26 finalized. emerging from that crisis, they finally reached a stable, genuinely autonomous architecture. The separation of concerns here is incredibly clean. The Samsung phone now acts as a super low latency gateway to capture intent. Meanwhile, the optimized Dell does all the heavy lifting. It runs the local LLMs, handles Node-RED routing, and manages the central database, all without blowing past that tiny 4 GB limit. All this synergy created what they call the event-driven persistent ingest pipeline. It is literally a step-by-step factory. It automatically takes John's raw, everyday thoughts captured on his phone, translates them into clean JSON payloads using Node-RED, and has Alma reason over them. As they built this out, they even developed a sovereign vocabulary for the system. They started conceptualizing the core routing logic as the Hermes engine. This is the runtime execution layer that actually grabs those JSON payloads and routes them to the correct hardware nodes for computation. Now, to keep all this massive complexity straight across different coding sessions, they did something absolutely brilliant. Gemini transitioned from being a simple chat interface into the system's actual long-term memory. By feeding dynamic state files and history logs into Gemini at the start of every single session, the AI instantly understood the system's entire history and current constraints. It literally stopped them from repeating past architectural mistakes. During one of their architecture mapping sessions, Gemini made this profound observation. It realized John wasn't just building a script anymore. By physically segmenting his hardware and partnering with AI, John had successfully engineered a physical manifestation of his own cognitive workflow. He was building an operating system for his life and his work. And this leaves us with such a fascinating perspective on where human-AI collaboration is heading. The AI isn't just a tool to debug your code anymore. It can be the ultimate silent partner in our creative evolution, helping us map, constrain, and completely design our own potential. So I'll leave you with this. If you had a silent co-architect in the dark, an AI partner to design a sovereign operating system for your own life, what would you build? Thanks for tuning into this explainer. I hope it sparks some brilliant architectural ideas of your own.